it doesn't always look like adding more clients in order to generate more revenue. There's other things that we could be doing when it comes to scaling, like in terms of increasing efficiencies, say putting, for example, automations in place. And that could be cutting down on team hours. Guess what? You just scaled your business because you just reduced expenses and you have more revenue, and now you automated more things to better support your clients, right? So there's so many of those little tweaks that you can come in and do to create a more efficient business that's actually scaling, that prevents the burnout from happening.
All right, party people, perk up and welcome back to another episode of Rooted and Relentless with me, Steph Rubio. I have a super special guest here, Katelyn Hamilton, who is a systems savvy, heart-led business coach, a woman immediately after my own heart just by saying heart-led and systems. I don't even have to say anything else, but we'll keep going. She leads powerhouse women and helps them scale without burnout or the BS. Katelyn is the self-dubbed queen of simplifying complexity, whether it's a messy back end, an overwhelmed team, or a vision that really needs a serious strategy upgrade. And she's a mom of 3. So again, we can relate with busy. We need sustainable. We need systems to help with that. A lover of bold dreams and real results. And she's all about building businesses that actually support the life you want. More time with family, more confidence in your leadership, and more ease in your everyday. Katelyn, welcome to Rooted and Relentless. Hey, I'm Steph Rubio, your go-to for no-nonsense chit-chat on growing a business and life that you actually love. Around here, we're rooted in who we are, even if we're still learning to love her, getting clear on where we want to go, and we're relentless in our pursuit to get there. We're clawing our way out of survival mode and learning to bet on ourselves. We get into the nitty-gritty of growth in life and in business, money, identity, boundaries, healing, leadership, parenting, partners, and all the messy bits in between. If you're ready to grow on your own terms, laugh a lot, possibly cry a little, maybe laugh until we cry if we're lucky, then hit subscribe and let's get into it. This is Rooted and Relentless. Grab your notepad and hold on to your tits. This one's for you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to chat and have this conversation.
Yeah, well, let's get into it. You are well known for helping people scale sustainably, helping women, like you mentioned, powerhouse women, scale sustainably. And before we can really even get into what that looks like, I know, and you know, because you've been in the online space and leading your own community and clients for a while, that these are buzzwords. While they used to mean something very blatant and obvious, I've seen them just get taken up and taken away, I think, in this kind of trust apocalypse we're in here. So let's just peel it back. And what does burnout even mean? And what does scaling even mean?
Yeah. So burnout it kind of comes in many different forms. And I speak primarily to, especially the mothers, right? Because we are inundated with so many things that I think contribute to burnout. It's the mental load of motherhood. It's the mile-long to-do list. It's balancing being a present mom while also running a business. And you have to take on and wear all these hats. And so for me, it really comes down to, especially as a mom, but you don't have to be a mom. This can happen before, without being a mom as well. But it's not putting the right things in place to support you so that you get to a place where you're just perpetually tired. And at the end of the day, you're just not able to continue at the pace that you were at before because you haven't built a business in a way that allows you to kind of breathe and build in that room that you need in order to continue to have that continued success and growth. So you get to a place where you're like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm tired. And you just kind of crumble and your business can take the brunt of that.
Yeah, truly. And it can show up in ways I've experienced this myself in the past. Tired is definitely a signal I've seen of burnout, like suddenly tired all the time, but also in the form of like a sudden loss of interest, not just motivation, but like interest in things that you might have been really excited about a couple of months ago and really enjoyed doing. But now suddenly, burnout's like that tired. And also these signals of just no longer being interested, because typically what happens is that hamster wheel of the run, the burn, if you think about it like that, leads to feeling like, what is that all worth anyway? Like,
exactly. Like, what am I doing this for anymore? And it doesn't feel worth it anymore. And you get to a place where you're like, to me, it's really a decision maker for where you go from there too. It's like you get to a place where you're like, I can no longer work this way. And you can, crumble at that moment and burn it all down in a way. Or that's where I feel like there's a shift that happens and I just need to do this differently. And that's what I'm kind of here to teach women, is that it doesn't have to be like that. There is another way. And touching on what you said, like in terms of what scaling means too, like there is a way that you don't have to continuously take on more. People think of scaling as continuously growing your revenue to
Yeah.
more, income and have more offers and do more. I really like to kind of bring it back to, you can create more wealth, but also it's not just like, scaling to me is not just about like offers and income. Scaling
Mm-hmm.
to me is consistent with doing the things that light you up, that bring you joy, that allow you to stack things on top of each other, but it's not always offers. So it could be like, for example, maybe you have a really successful business, but now you want to step into speaking and you want to
Yeah.
go and do more speaking opportunities. It's, how are we also building a business that supports you and scales you in a way to focus your time and attention on that, so that you're not inundated in the day to day as much as you were before. So it's scaling
Yeah.
gives you your time back and gives you the space to pursue another area of growth within the business.
Exactly. So I'm a little obsessed because I would have approached this a very similar way that you mentioned, like growth and scaling when you were talking about what scaling is, because they're not the same thing. Scaling
Mhm.
allows you to grow more, it
Yes.
enables growth, but it's been used interchangeably. And that's not the same, because you can grow through adding a new product line. That's
Mhm.
growth. That's not scaling. The scaling, what you're currently doing, finding ways to do it more efficiently,
Yes.
better, lets you do more of that without significantly increasing resources. So, not a lot of more time, not a lot of more money in there. But
Yep.
if you're doing a completely different product line, I would venture to say that's probably not the case. That's brand new resources. That's brand new energy. That's brand new time. So that's
Yep.
growth. That's not scaling.
100%.
I also like to do this sometimes. So I just Googled, like, if you just want to Google up what is scaling in business to validate all that, our AI overview would say scaling a business means growing revenue at a faster rate than costs, improving efficiency, and expanding capacity without a proportional increase in resources, which is essentially
Yeah.
what we just said. Because scaling isn't truly, this would be growth if you do the same thing. If I do what I'm doing this month and then I make 2 new clients next month and do all that the same, that's not scaling, that is growth, because I it's the same amount of cost. It's not proportional to
Yes.
saving cost while scaling more. So I'm obsessed with the differentiation there, and when we're on the
Yeah.
same page. How do you see or think that scaling causes burnout or can cause burnout?
Well, it kind of goes back to like what I was saying in terms of, people think it means this one thing, right? And so they think that I'm scaling the business because I'm increasing more, I'm adding more offers, or I'm adding more clients, or I'm adding more revenue. And that's causing them to lose their time, be more overwhelmed. And I simply like also impacts every other part of the business, most intentionally, like the client experience, right? So I
Yeah.
find a lot of people think, okay, I have to continue to scale and scale by doing more and more. And then ultimately they're burnt out. Ultimately, they're like, I can't keep doing this at this level. And it brings them back to that point of like, okay, well, what do I need to be doing differently? Because I can't continue this pace. And that's where scaling becomes so important, that you kind of peel back the onion a bit and say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, how do we do this? How do we scale the business without requiring more of my time? Because like you're saying, you could scale the business and add 10 more calls to your calendar,
Yeah.
and you're scaling, but you're not doing that in an efficient way that's going to allow you to grow, because you're going to be burnt out because you just don't have
Yeah.
any time back. And that's where I kind of focus on like, okay, I don't want you to focus on scaling from the thought process of adding more. It's not, that's just not sustainable. And that's, I
Yeah.
think, the biggest pillar in my business and my goals is really helping women build sustainable businesses. And it doesn't always look like adding more clients in order to generate more revenue. There's other things that we could be doing when it comes to scaling, like in terms of increasing efficiencies, say putting, for example, automations in place. That could be cutting down on team hours. Guess what? You just scaled your business because you just reduced expenses and you have more revenue,
Yeah.
and now you
Exactly.
automated more things to better support your clients, right? So there's so many of those little tweaks that you can come in and do to create a more efficient business that's actually scaling, that prevents the burnout from happening.
Yeah, so you just started to give an example on this, because when you started talking about this part, and I think we can expand on a little bit, you said sustainable a couple of times. And so what does a sustainable growth actually look like? You started to peel it back just now when
Yeah,
you were like, well, systems can do that and automations, because now you have a system doing something for you versus a team. And one, you could save that time and money from your team, but you could also then have them doing something else. Again, if we're
correct.
talking about
Yep.
favorite product lines or this new idea that just had to sit on your back burner for a while. But what does sustainable growth actually look like?
So this is really important to me because it's how I built my entire business. Now, I've worked with clients all across industries and have gone from zero to, a million in a year. And for me, that I've watched it on the back end. I, was an OBM for like 6 years. And so I saw it. I worked in people's businesses firsthand and would come into them and they might be making $1 million, but they are tired, they're burnt out, they're working around the clock, and they have no systems in place to support the massive level of growth that they had. And so I witnessed this early into my business career, and I was like, I don't want to build that way. I don't want to build a business where I'm burnt out and I'm working 24/7. I started my business before I had children. And so my goal was always to build a business that reflected the life that I wanted to live. I did not want to be tied to my business 24/7. So for me, sustainable growth and having a sustainable foundation is not always, it does, I mean, it could happen, but like it's not always the goal to go from, I think for a while there, the buzzword was like, oh, I can take you from 0 to 100K in like 6 months. Like that was like the thing so many coaches preached, but they forgot the important piece of like, if you don't have the foundations to support that growth, such as an onboarding experience for your clients, right? You don't have an automation set up to, you send a payment. Like if you're doing everything manually, then you are really putting yourself at a detriment because you can't scale that. You can't scale adding more manual work to your plate. There has to be systems in place to hold that. There has to be processes put in place for your team for you to be able to pass off some of these things. So if you're consistently onboarding every single client, then like you're taking up your time. So going back to kind of that original of like, so what does it look like to me? It's foundationally building on systems that you are putting in place to support your business at every new level and every new growth point. And it ultimately is feeling supported and not overwhelmed at every single notch in business. Level in business, like
Yeah,
you're
like your milestone, your growth milestone, essentially, whatever that looks like for you.
for sure. And having the capacity, because I think capacity is a really important thing to talk about as well. That's another really big thing in business that so many women are like, I don't have the capacity to do that. And I'm like, it's hidden in there because there's things that aren't running efficiently or sustainably. And I think the other important piece here too is the fact that sustainability is something that you can build to that next level and it holds. So what you've built holds. Like there's the ability to hold that. It's not going to break when you get to the next level. So sure, there's every time you level up, there's tweaks and adjustments that need to be made, but you never really should have to, in my mind, like overhaul the whole system if you're building sustainably. You're just making different tweaks along the way to better support the growth that you're incurring.
Yeah, so time is a finite resource. Like that's not something that can be denied, right? And I call, like I say, time, energy, and money are the three most valuable resources in our business. Like people pay to get those back or spend time and energy
Yep.
and money to make more money, right? So, and time is a finite resource. So using systems and using systems that are automated, so do it for you, that gives you time back. Like that's one of the ways. So we
Yep.
talk about scaling, that also then plays into your capacity, because if you are maxed, especially when we talk about to the point of burnout, the only way that you're going to change that, and I had this conversation in my mastermind this week when someone said they had burned out. I was like, well, that doesn't just go away. I know this from myself and like my own mentors that help me with it, like recognize it and work through it. Even watching clients is like, it doesn't go away because you recognize that you burned out. And so you keep working at the
Yep.
same magnitude. It changes when you stop that in its tracks, or if you get to that point you stop that in its tracks. You have to stop. Especially it's from a like capacity standpoint in time, you have to take a real break. You have to reground yourself what's most important, and then make your plan of how you're going to carve out and actually hold that boundary around what's most important. So time with your family, etc. Because then maybe
Yeah.
you'll become resentful when you don't. And then
100%.
that builds up and then it starts a cycle. And when you're resentful, we can tie this back to strategy, which I love to do. That
Yeah.
shows up. So you're out here wanting more clients or more money, but you're tired as heck. And now you're resentful because you never have time for those values, that family, that time, that travel, whatever. Now you're resentful, and that's going to show up. And so it's actually a more vicious cycle than I think people even realize.
For sure. And I think the important piece that you kind of mentioned too is like you have to pause, right? You have to kind of like pause and evaluate. I find a couple things here. One, I think women really struggle, especially high achieving women, to do this because it feels uncomfortable to pause. It feels wrong to pull back, to pause, to sit in it, to evaluate, because you're like, well, if I'm not doing something to generate more revenue or grow, I am not successful. I think they equate, that's a lot of times that's equated with success. But sometimes you get to a place in business where it's actually the most strategic thing you can do for your business is pause and evaluate what needs to be done differently or what needs to be pulled off your plate in order for you to be successful. And that audit, that minute that you take in the grand scheme of your business is going to like rocket fire you, so to speak, into propel you forward into that next level. You just have to be willing to be a little bit uncomfortable with taking a minute to evaluate.
Yeah, and I think like take more than a minute, and I think do it at preset intervals. So it's not
Mhm.
just like when it's on fire and this doesn't feel
Mhm.
good. It actually just becomes a rhythm. And that's approach I take. And that's a part of leadership. Everyone needs set reflections, whether it's monthly or quarterly. It really depends on your business and your growth level, what this looks like. But where you're not only looking at actual numbers because that tells you the story of where to focus all said time, energy, and resources, but that kind of intrinsic moment because you are a stakeholder in your business too. So your energy, your capacity, you should be looking at that right alongside like revenue. What felt
100%.
good if you're doing it quarterly? What felt good the last quarter, but what didn't? Like, what would I never want to do again? What actually surprised me and went really well? And what was my energy and capacity? And now you start to spot those signals and you can course correct naturally before the
Yes.
burnout. You can start to kind of redraw boundary lines that you didn't even know you needed because your boundaries really are just to protect your values. We
Yeah.
know in our space and as leaders, we constantly coach people around values, but I don't think many people recognize boundaries as a tool to protect what you value. Because again, then the vicious cycle, right? Resentment builds because you don't get to do what you value. So we're backing it all the way up.
Yeah. And I also think that life changes. I recently did like that self reflection of like, okay, what went well this quarter? What didn't go well? How did I feel, with my time and my energy and reflecting on like why it felt that way. So, like I had a lot of more travel in Q1 than I've had in any years past. So I didn't feel like make as much progress towards the goals I wanted to make. But at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? I was still able to leave my house at 3:15 every day to go pick up my kids from school. And that's a huge value to me is like, I started this business because I did not want my kids to be in full-time childcare. That was important to me. It's,
Yeah.
not maybe everyone else's, but like I wanted to pick them up early every single day and not only get a couple hours with them. So like that's a win. That I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
still did that every day. It had time for me. I like reinvested in going to like the sauna and working out and like, just all those things that like I needed for my own physical and mental health. So when you kind of like look at it, it's more than just this is what I talk about, what I mean by like creating a sustainable business, because those things are just as important. Is like, am I building a business that supports my life and allows me in this season to kind of like be what I need it to be? And guess what? Q2, I don't think I'm traveling. Maybe I'm traveling 1 week at the end of summer. I'm not traveling as much. And so I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to be home more. I'm going to be present more. I'm going to have more opportunities to do, more time to do
Yeah.
some of the things I want to do. And then season of life, right? So like my kids are 14, 5, and 3. And we live in a couple different worlds, having an older and younger.
Yeah.
But what my kids need from me now is different than what the newborn stage when I had two under two was. My capacity was significantly lower when they were younger because I had so much more mental space taken up by sleep schedules and feed schedules and routines, and
Mhm.
stuff like that, that impacted my business. So like that's what I kind of mean by like as a leader, you're stepping into this multidimensional approach to business. And it's not just linear, one, we all know that, but it's multifaceted on what success looks like, what growth looks like, what scalability looks like, because you might need to outsource more at this point in time to get time back for things that aren't business related. And that's growth still
Yep.
because you're living a life that feels good. And that's ultimately what I think we all want. And it avoids that burnout. So that's where for me, I never resonated with the like 0 to 100K in 6 months or build a 7-figure business. That's nice. That's great. And like I still have had success, but my business didn't blow up overnight. I feel like I've always been able to build sustainably because I've kind of kept those things in check. And maybe my financial success isn't as quick as somebody else's, but that wasn't the goal for me in building my own business. So I think that you kind of have to look at that and what's important to you.
Yeah. So when I talk about sustainable too, especially a lot lately, I'll approach it from, well, it's kind of like the huzzah at the end. I build, and then I'm like, what we're talking about here is really how you build a sustainable business because there's a you aspect to it. But like you
Mhm.
referenced your client experience earlier, right? And one way that you can like scaling and having your systems allows you to sustain and such, right? Well, I kind of take client experience and flip it on its head and really help folks understand that we serve way more than our clients, and that serves us if we do it
Yeah.
right. So our collaborator experience, like your experience coming on this podcast, counts as that, and how I make you feel and how you experience my expertise may make you want to recommend someone else when you hear someone talking about needing somewhere, right? And then I get exposure to their audience. So it's this like ecosystem we're building, and that's not it. Your teammates are a part of that, and you are a part of that. So I have these 5 stakeholder groups I talk about because of that, because that's how you sustain. When you have an ecosystem where opportunities are flowing to you, which making that revenue easier, you use systems to make sure that's all taken care of as efficiently as possible. And you constantly include yourself in a part of that because who's carrying this all anyways? And that
Yep.
includes everything from capacity, energy, what feels good, what lights you the fuck up, and you still want to be doing in a few years' time, at least right now, and what doesn't. And how do we scratch that off the list? Because it really is just one life at the end of the day. I can't throw YOLO around. That was cool like 15 years ago, but it's only one. And at the end of the day, the reality is it's really only yours. As women that and moms, our job is constantly like the job handed down to us and innately is like this caregiver. We are
Mhm.
so good at making sure everything else is taken care of, the business, the people, the kids, the husbands, the partners, the family, all of that at the expense of ourselves typically. So when I do strategy and goals and stuff that people recognize as your strategy, like I'm like, yeah, well, you're going to do the business goals. I know you want to make more revenue. We're going to do that. But what about yourself?
Yeah.
Because I find that women typically, we're not putting ourselves on the list anywhere. It's always in
Mhm.
service to something else. Even though my business is in service to me and my family in some degree, right? One, I love what I do, so it fulfills me. But two, I make money, so we know what money does. But what else is there to that? I find I have to set my own personal health goals, mental and physical, because I'll put that last when it's busy
Mhm.
and the kids have 3 sports and my husband's working at night now and now I have to cook dinner every night like women used to, and I'm all like rallying against the system over here. I'll do that. That's my default. So first off, a woman like a mom, what do you mean you're putting yourself first, not your kids?
Mhm.
I'm going to do that by default. If they're in the car and they want what I'm eating, I'm going to freaking give it to them.
Mhm.
But I won't put myself first unless I actually set a goal to do so and then track myself against that. So it's almost like this little trickery I do here that you're a stakeholder in your business too. And if you don't sustain, the person who holds this entire thing, like not saying you
Yeah.
don't have teammates, but the vision and the heart and where you're trying to take it and the reason why you want to do what you do, then it's not going to sustain. That is
It's also
sustainability, taking care of every stakeholder.
yes, that's also good leadership too, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so being a good leader is recognizing that you have to take care of yourself and you also have to ask for what you need too, I think is the other thing. So I think as moms, especially, we are, like you just said, so used to doing everything for everyone. And sometimes it's just like you become the default of, oh, well, that's just going to land on your plate. And so sometimes for me, in order to have more space, more clarity, more sustainability in everything, because your personal life, like I believe that personal life and business life are intertwined, and what's happening in the home impacts your work and vice versa. And so it's during those times that, one, you're prioritizing, yes, to like your health and yourself, but two, like, are you asking for what you need in this season? Because that changes from time to time too, right? Similarly to what you kind of mentioned, like my husband makes dinner more nights a week than I do, because it allows me to then be present with my kids while he's inside doing that. And that's the dynamic that works in our house. Obviously, that's not necessarily every single night, but like that's what I said. I was like, I need you to do this and take this off my plate. I'll make the meal plan for the week, and I'll order the groceries for the week. That's another example though. We order all of our
Yeah.
groceries for delivery because I just needed to take out the time of going to the store. And also we save more money because I'm not standing there with kids pulling random
Buying
things at
extra.
them. But very, very efficient system there. But that's what I needed, need in that season. And it's just different. But I'm constantly also evaluating the home and what we need at home. We just added laundry folding to our our
Yeah.
biweekly cleaning service, because I'm like, I'm tired of having 4 laundry baskets that aren't folded, or spending an hour folding clothes at the end of the day when I'm exhausted and just want to get to bed earlier, right? Or whatever it may be. So I don't know. I think it's a constant evaluation that goes into good leadership, is like recognizing when you need to shift, and just kind of having that like running ticker of like, I noticed that, it's being more self-aware, to call that out sooner so that you can recognize what you need, ask for it, get the right support to continue to be working in like your zone of genius as well, and supporting you in all ways within the home and the business.
Yeah, self-awareness, ownership, accountability. You own that for yourself in your life just as much as your business. And you just kind of proved what you were saying about your life and your business being so intertwined in talking about outsourcing. I think another thing I see, depending on stage of business, as people are really moving really into that 6 figures and kind of growing for the first time, that you outsource in your business, that it's a VA or social media managers. Like you can also outsource at home, especially if
Mhm.
that's your genius. I know several women growing $1 million businesses that are like, I outsource almost everything at home because I can do all of this in my business and freaking love it. And
Yeah.
I'd rather do that than everything you just said, than worrying about dinner and dishes and laundry and stuff like that. And so just opening it up as a woman, they don't have to be so separate. And a
Yeah.
lot of us absorb that with like life is life and business is business. And really, your business is a vessel to help you live the life that you want, both money and
Yes.
impact and all of that, right? And so looking at 7 days a week, 24 hours a day,
Hmm.
full life cycle of that,
Hmm.
what do you need for it to feel fulfilled and good? You have to be self-aware, and then you have to acknowledge that and communicate it. I learned this so I was always good with like boundaries, like I am not working when I go home kind of thing,
Yeah.
regardless of what job I had, because I protected my family time so much. So I can't say like I had to learn that through business necessarily, but I definitely, and also from the woman standpoint. So going back to what you were saying with like what you need. Your husband cooks more than you. That's why you heard me kind of dig at like suddenly I'm cooking dinner again. And like that was not the design around here, because I was listening to Rachel Rogers' book, We Should All Be Millionaires, years ago when I started my business, just like on audiobook walking. And she had this concept where she talks about $1 million decisions versus broke ass decisions, and how you're making $1 million decisions or you're making broke ass decisions, because we should all be millionaires, especially women and
Yeah.
historically underrepresented groups who have historically been excluded from that kind of access. And she's like, what happens with women is you think that even asking someone else to cook, like, first off, you have to be able to do that. But even when you get to that point where you're like, hey, listen, this is a really busy week for me. I'm off limits in the kitchen. You guys are on your own. Like, my 12-year-old can cook macaroni and cheese and grilled cheese so he can feed himself and he can actually feed the whole family. So
Yeah.
good luck. But she was like, there's another layer to that when you're a woman. So everyone should be aware with this. It's stuck with me this long. So clearly it's been impactful. But she was like, as women, even when you do that, you still carry more responsibility, because you're still the one making sure there was bread and there was cheese and that they knew that they needed to cook dinner, and on and on and on. So this is basically just your permission to know that even trying not to carry so much weight, you're still going to do it. So
Mhm.
start being extra self-aware, recognizing what you need to grow the business, to be the vessel, to live your life, and that entire ecosystem. That's how you lead your business. That's how you lead your life. And you've represented that, Katelyn. So for anybody listening, so I didn't know Katelyn much before today, connected on Instagram. Someone recommended, right, that you come on the podcast and chat with
Yeah.
me. And so sometimes this is always fun, because you don't know, like I see what you submit and how you show up online, but you don't know how much synergy there is until you talk. And there's so much similarities, but for anyone who doesn't know Katelyn yet, is getting to know her through her bomb diggity knowledge. Like, you have lived this. And so you are proving it because, I mean, you said you had 3 kids. 2 of those you had while having your business, right? You paid yourself full, I mean, I don't know about pay, but you took full maternity leave over 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And you have a brick and mortar business now that is supposed to be profitable within 3 months. And profitability, another not quite buzzword here, but if you're not used to it, it means you make more money than you're spending. And in 3 months for a brick and mortar, especially, that's huge.
Yeah, and we're close. We're very close to profitability. We're not quite there yet. Last month we were about 80%, which was month 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's like such a couple small things too. In that is that I became the primary income provider for our household the year I had my son, which was 2021. He's 5, and my husband was able to leave his corporate career and start his own business. And I still took a 12-week maternity leave. And he left his job, and he is a home inspector now, but he started that business that same year. For the first 2 years, he made very little money. He was still networking and building the relationships, and his business took significantly longer to get off the ground than mine. And over the last 5 years, he is now at a place where he is doing exceptionally well with his business that has been able to allow me to kind of refocus on pulling back a little bit to like, where do I want to focus my time? What do I want to be doing? I want a little bit more time with the kids. So like, I haven't had the financial, I'll say, pressure, but like I enjoyed what I did. I've always kind of been a hustler by nature in a way, but building sustainably, right? And so it's been nice that like we have kind of evened each other out. Like he worked the corporate career, allowed me to build my business in those first couple of years. And then I was able to like sustain us through not just having 1 kid, but 2 kids, and I had them 22 months apart. I took 2 12-week maternity leaves. I had a team that supported me in my business for that 12 weeks while I was out both times, and was still the primary breadwinner. And now I'm at a place where I'm kind of shifting, like, okay, what do I want to focus on? I want to do more speaking. I want to do more, X, Y, and Z. And also I've put in a substantial amount of time in our new business. It is brick and mortar. It's a wellness business. So we have saunas, cold plunges, and a salt room and red light therapy, which also has helped me just focus on my own wellness goals too.
Yeah.
But I've been able to create similarly. This is why it's scalability. This runs across all industries, across all businesses, brick and mortar, online, wherever. Everything that I have learned, I have put into practice with this new business in creating. I mean, we launched our business within 6 months, which is also very unheard of for a brick and mortar to come to life that quickly.
Usually that takes long, just building out the space sometimes.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, that's half the time.
So it's all that to say that like it's applicable, like building sustainable systems, having the right team members in place, having the right systems and processes, creating, the lead gen and marketing plan and sales plan, like all of that works across the board. Like when you do this in a foundational way to create scalable systems in business. And it's brought me so much joy to be able to kind of like focus on doing that as well. And yeah, we are so very close to, we're hoping to be within a couple thousand this month of the black, which is huge. So
yeah, congratulations. I mean, that's huge. 3 months would be huge. So the fact that you're knocking on month 4 and you're like, oh, almost, it's probably next month. No big deal. I mean, that's a definition of power couple, by the way. So let's not skip over that. You want to talk about power couple. For me, that's not the folks like showing up on Instagram, showing us what they're wearing. No shade, you know what I mean? And they're good bodies, they're taking care of themselves. But it's like people growing and being able to, it's not even ride the backs of each other, but like one can stand and be the strong pillar of what the other one builds and vice versa. Like my husband is going to get to listen to this episode because I've tried to get him to start a business for about a year and he's not biting. And I finally let him go, but I'm just going to give him subtle reminders. Like you should really listen to this episode 30 minutes in, like, okay, and why? Until he gets to the business part. He was laid off twice last year and I got really pissed because it was like the first time, and we've been together. I mean, we lived here almost 10 years. He had the same job. He was with them for 8 years. And then there was a lot out of control, Doge and all of that fun administrative stuff. But I was just like, why don't we just do what we want and make money and not let people tell you when you get to work and not. But he does super specialized like nerdy IT stuff. And he's like, yeah, this is just, sorry, that's the trade I want to do. I'm like, fine. But I just can't execute another business. I can advise someone. I need the hands.
Yeah. Yes.
This was a really good conversation. I don't think we should stop here. Everything we talked about today really, to me, comes back to leadership. It comes back to leading yourself. It comes back to leading others, being aware of what's needed to achieve what you want, both in life and in business. So I think that you have a leadership assessment, yes, that can help
Yes.
people kind of start there. Like, where are we
Yeah.
going with this baby, and start on that track. For anyone listening, tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, so essentially this is just a downloadable. It's not your traditional like, oh, I'm going to score you on what your leadership strengths are, but it's almost like an analysis of self in a way, and it also helps you identify not just your strengths but also like where those gaps are, and then recommendations onto like what the right support for those gaps are as a leader. So we all have our own unique leadership strengths, weaknesses, right? But this kind of takes it a step further of not just like telling you what those are. It's like, okay, here's then how we support this from an entire business and team perspective as well, to help your business run again more efficiently, more effectively, to be able to support you as you continue to scale and grow. So this is a free resource that you can just plug in your email and get sent straight to your inbox, and you'll have that to support you in your team.
Sweet. Okay. Well, I like the diagnostic aspect to that too. So it's not like fill this out and go forth and still be questioning what you're doing here. I'll drop the link to that in the show notes so that anyone interested can take a peek. And for any of your new friends listening that want to keep up with you, tell us where they can do that.
Yeah, I would love if you sent me an Instagram DM. I'm very active on Instagram. My handle is Katelyn, Katelyn Hamilton. And you can also check out my website. It's same thing, CaitlinEHamilton.com. Would love to connect and have conversations around motherhood and business and scalability and systems and all the things in the DMs, because that's where the real fun happens.
Yeah, same. Voice notes. Obviously, I sent you some
Yes.
voice notes too. So I love to just hop on and get straight to the heart of what we're talking about. So, all right, I'll drop that in the show notes too, though, so no one has to worry about landing on someone else's webpage. They can find you on Instagram. Thank you so much for joining and chatting today, Katelyn. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Rooted and Relentless. If it made you laugh, nod along, or grab that cute little notebook of yours and scribble something down, please hit me with the SSR, subscribe, share, and review, as in leave a review. Thanks for hanging. Bye.